Are there any further speakers? I call Honi Herrera. You'll need to use the handheld. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker. Kia ora tātou katoa te whare. Mr. Chair, this government's line about spending the money it makes on the sale of state assets on new schools and hospitals is a myth that is very quickly exposed by a simple reading of this financial review of the Treasury and the government's financial statements for 2012, which shows a number of things. One, that even though the Minister of Finance talks up his government's target of 170,000 new jobs, he has no plan to create jobs except point to a marketplace that is dumping Kiwi workers and shifting our manufacturing sector overseas. Two, that even though the Minister says not to read too much into our skyrocketing unemployment figures, external agencies not only correctly predicted our current level of employment when the government couldn't, those same agencies also predict another 25,000 unemployed in the March quarter. Three, that even though the Minister says he can't understand why unemployment is up but people on unemployment benefits are down, he happily votes for welfare reforms which are forcing people off benefits, out of their homes and onto the streets. Four, even though the Minister says he's optimistic about our future, the review shows that Crown debt will go through the roof over the next 4 years, and that according to the IMF, our external debt is the second worst in the developed world and will be worse than Greece's by 2014. And five, even though the Minister is talking up the sale of Mighty River Power, the review itself says that the Crown is unlikely to maximise its return from a public offering of shares in the current economic climate. Such is the climate in which this government is preparing to sell off assets that we already own. When they say to us, hey, guess what, folks, you know that house that our grandparents built? Well, we're going to sell the kitchen because we need some money to fix the toilet. But don't worry, we can rent the kitchen back for the next 1,000 years. Can you see how dumb that sounds? This is our house, but we've got to rent back our own kitchen forever at a rent that'll keep going up every year for a kitchen that our grandparents built. The fact is that this country is in an economic hole with the second worst external debt in the developed world, and that monies from the sale of state assets will be used to repay that debt. Not all of it, just some of it. And isn't that a good idea, I hear you say, to repay debt? Well, no, because what happens when we're sold off the power companies? The debt will still be there, and then what are we going to sell? Our schools? Too late, we've already privatised education. Health? Well, we've already privatised health services as well, much to the joy of overseas private health insurance companies making a killing off our pain and misery. And houses, state houses, already being flogged off as we speak today, as witnessed by the communities of Glen Innes, Porirua and Maraeroa. The fact is that the Rape and Pillage Brigade have already gotten their grubby little hands on most of the family jewels, so this government is now trumpeting our third world status and our low wages in an attempt to sell our labour to the world. That's the climate in which this government is planning to flog off our assets. That's why Mana stood with the New Zealand Māori Council, who won their case to ensure Māori rights to water were recognised and delayed the sale of Mighty River Power until today. That's why Mana will support the Council's effort to clarify the extent of those rights when the case comes back before the tribunal later this month. That's why Mana supports Pauakani's bid to stop the sale of state assets until their interests in the water which drives Mighty River Power have been properly clarified and protected. And that's why today Mana was proud to stand alongside Labour, the Greens, New Zealand First, the unions, Great Power and the Students' Association in receiving the petition of nearly 400,000 people calling for a referendum on asset sales. Because on matters of principle, people have to take a stand. Because despite widespread disapproval from the public over the pending sale of Mighty River Power, despite every respected economist questioning its financial viability, despite several court cases being brought by Māori over water rights, and despite government already admitting that the shares will be sold cheaply and that they cannot guarantee that those shares will remain in New Zealand hands, this government still plans to sell Mighty River Power. Today, Mr. Chair, I stand alongside those hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders who signed the petition and challenge the government to put its claim that it has support for asset sales to the ultimate test. a straight referendum, one simple question. Do you support the sale of state assets, yes or no?
Order.
This fight is a long way from over. Tēnā koe, Mr. Chairman. Kia ora tātou katoa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I call Andrew Williams.